Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live on a Saturday morning for a little Q&A action. My name is Steven, and I am the host, and joining me is my good friend Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing very well. Last night got to go out to celebrate my wife's birthday, which is tomorrow, but we celebrated last night with my parents. And then tomorrow night, we're going out with her parents. So a lot of festivities this weekend. And last night, I even found time to cook somebody on social media, and it was fun.
Yeah, we try and avoid that part of social media, but from time to time, we do indulge, and it was a great one. So you love to see it. Happy birthday to Janae as well. Hopefully you guys have had a great time celebrating, and hopefully she can continue to do that. Okay, so we are going to do a Q&A today. We'll start with some of the injury stuff. Unfortunately, the Chargers are pretty banged up heading into Monday night. The Chargers will have another practice today, and then we'll get some game designations, and then they don't actually have to elevate anybody from the practice squad until Monday. Since it's a Monday night game, we won't know that until that day. So it's going to be a really interesting weekend of injury news for the Chargers. Like I said, it's an unfortunate week to be a little bit banged up because Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. has cleared concussion protocol. So the Cardinals offense is looking very, very healthy, and the Chargers defense has not been looking very, very healthy. So in terms of the DNPs, we'll start with that side of the ball. Joey Bosa, Christian Fulton, and Dean Leonard have not practiced yet this week. Joey obviously is dealing with his hip injury. Christian Fulton and Dean Leonard are both dealing with their respective hamstring injuries. So the Fulton one is obviously very notable because he's been playing so well, and B, this is like the main thing that kept him from ever really reaching his potential in Tennessee. He dealt with several hamstring injuries there. So part of the whole thing was like Ben Herbert can get his hamstrings right. That's part of the reason why he signed here, part of the reasons why they were interested in him. And unfortunately, the hamstring injury is popping up, and he previously was dealing with a knee injury. So potentially down Fulton, obviously down Asante, and potentially down Dean Leonard for this weekend matchup on Monday Night Football.
And playing is Marvin Harrison Jr. So
Yes.
we expected the Chargers corners to be banged up. We weren't sure about Marvin Harrison Jr., but they are going to play him. Now, if you want to talk about prize picks, right now his more or less is at 50.5 receiving yards. So prize picks is not projecting a Marvin Harrison Jr. torch the Chargers game. And I think that's fair given he's coming off concussion. The defense has been solid. But yeah, I'm a little worried now that Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing. I think the good news is, of course, this Cardinals defense stinks. And I feel like the Chargers will do just fine on offense. Not 45 points, but they'll do well enough. Bummer to see these guys dealing with injuries. Bummer to see Fulton in particular dealing with injuries because of how much of a mainstay he's been. Pass coverage, pass breakups, tackling. So it's unfortunate to see him out. Of course, we want to see more Cam Hart. I'm sure Chargers social media will be a buzz with the whole Cam Hart shut down Marvin Harrison Jr. before thing. He can do it again. But as you mentioned, Kyler Murray's throwing at him this time. It might make a bit of a difference. So we'll see. But I think the Chargers, they will concede yards this time. And if they somehow stop and completely shut out Marvin Harrison Jr., like, can Minter be the, I don't know, president? I don't know.
If the Chargers passing defense shuts down the Cardinals passing offense this week with these injuries, Jesse Minter should be handed the assistant coach of the year award right in the locker room immediately after the game is over. The Cardinals passing offense isn't like one of the best in the league, but they have a group of pass catchers and a quarterback that I think are at worst above average. So it's a much bigger challenge for the Chargers' young secondary this week. It does kind of seem like Jasir Taylor is trending towards playing, which is good news. He's been dealing with a fibula injury, which I don't know like the extent of that, but he has been practicing this week. And so based off of pictures, he's been in the slot, and then Tariq Still and Cam Hart are starting on the outside. So I think we feel good about the way that those two young rookies have played, but it's a different beast when you're going up against this receiver crop, even frankly, than what Tariq still saw against the Chiefs, right? Like it's a little bit different going against Justin Watson versus Greg Dortch and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson. So it's a much bigger challenge. I think you and I both kind of agree that the two rookies have played really well thus far,
Mm-hmm.
but Cam Hart was not targeted last week. He's going to get targeted probably 8 or 9 or 10 times this week
Mm-hmm.
because of the quarterback and because of the wide receivers. So I'm expecting him to hold his own. I probably will expect him to get beat a couple of times by this wide receiver group as well. But as long as we see the positive flashes continue, then obviously that's good news. That's what we are looking for. But I expect a lot of safety help. I expect a lot of conservative play calling from Jesse Minter, as has been the case. A lot of cover 6, cover 4, etc. And so this is not going to be like an avalanche game. I don't think. I think Jesse Minter has done a great job of preventing that, regardless of who has been out there. So I'm a little nervous. I'm a little excited, but I trust Jesse Minter to obviously put these guys in a position to succeed.
Yeah, I agree. And the good news is it's not like they had 2 or 3 Pat Surtains out there before and they were playing aggressive man coverage. Like they've kind of been playing conservative this whole
Right.
time and it's worked. So they're just going to settle into a bit of what they've already been doing, more so sure without Fulton, but they've kind of been operating like this. I'm glad like Cam Hart got last week. Tariq
Yeah.
still has had a few weeks to get, his feet underneath him and prepare. And I think it was Minter that, commented on how his preparation has been so big for him. So I'm glad they this isn't the first game and everyone's starting for the first time in this
Right.
one. And even just watching Cam Hart last week and Tarheeb still, they just fit in the system. They flow so well. So it should be good. But this is, I think, unquestionably, depending how you feel about a rookie, but it is Marvin Harrison Jr., the best quarterback to wide receiver duo, I guess, connection that they've faced all year. Sure, you can say Mahomes to Kelsey, that's specifically tight end. In
Right.
terms of quarterback to wide receiver, this is the best matchup they faced all year. So hopefully they can hold their own.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'll be a fun matchup to watch. On the other opposite news, in terms of the other side of the football, Hayden Hurst did not practice this week. He has not practiced yet this week, and Quentin Johnston has not practiced this week. So those two players seem like they're trending towards being out. I mentioned this on Thursday, but Jeremy Fowler was saying that Hayden Hurst is expected to miss some time with his groin injury, which is unfortunate just because he's never really been able to get up to speed. And then potentially not having Quentin Johnston is a bit of an issue, but it does seem like DJ Chark has a decent chance of being activated and playing. So it might be kind of a situation where they lose the one receiver and get the other receiver coming back. At the end of the day, I think the passing offense is going to go through Ladd either way. But it is, unfortunate that Quentin's made a lot of strides and now he's dealing with an injury. So you obviously don't like to see that.
No, not at all. And he did tough it out a couple of times against the Broncos, but unfortunately, if he misses this game, this is if Chark is playing and playing a good amount. This is the wide receiver trio they wanted out there, so they're going to get the 1, 2, and 3 they wanted out there. I think things have changed a little bit. Obviously, with Chark being hurt, Palmer not quite being hurt, not quite having a great start to the year, and then McConkey's just, hello, I'm here, welcome to the NFL, I'm good. So I think that's changed maybe the pecking order, but this is the 3 that they wanted. Unfortunate though that Johnston can't contribute right now if he doesn't play. Hurst not playing doesn't really, unfortunately, do much for me in either direction.
Yeah.
Stone Smart will step up. That's great. He's not going to get 100 yards, but he's also not going to cripple them that Hurst is not out there, that Smart is out there. So unfortunate. Hopefully he heals up, but yeah, it's not a huge loss, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was looking at this yesterday, and of all of the tight ends who have at least, you have to, excuse me, you have to filter it to quite a small
5
amount of targets, right?
Yeah.
It's like 5 targets, but basically any tight end who has actually played, Hayden Hurst is second to last in yards per route run. So the Chargers are not throwing him the football, and when he has been throwing the football, it hasn't been awesome. I mean, he had the one big catch against the Chiefs, but that's been pretty much it so far this year. So maybe we get two Stone Smart catches this week, and maybe we get 2 screens for Will Dissly. But yeah, the Hayden Hurst stuff is just it. That was not a reaction to the Hayden Hurst comments or play specifically, as Kevin points out. It was unfortunate timing for him. But of all of the guys that they have signed to like these 1-year deals, Hurst and Gus Edwards have probably been the most disappointing so far.
Oh yeah, and well, depends how you felt about Bozeman. You and I weren't exactly like, okay, next Corey Linsley. So I guess it's not like
he's at least been a good run blocker.
Yeah,
And
Gus Edwards is by far the biggest disappointment for me so far.
Okay,
because it's been like anything would have been good, and we got the worst end of it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's been a surprise, if nothing else, but maybe it's injury related. Who's the other guy you mentioned? Oh, Hurst. Yeah. Yeah. Even I at least thought he would trend towards a mildly resurgent 300 to 400 yards this year. Will he crack 200?
Yeah, I don't know. One thing that I did want to point out as well is Charger 4521 brings up. Trey Pipkins has been limited in practice. I think he is going to obviously try and play. But in previous weeks, it's been Jamari Sawyer at right guard. This week, it's been Foster Sorrell. So something to monitor. I don't think Jamari has played all that well in his spot duty. I thought he played okay at left tackle against the Chiefs. The Chargers gave him a ton of help in that one. But when he's been at guard, it's been pretty disappointing. So this is something to monitor. I don't know if Jamari is also dealing with something or if they were just trying something out differently. But the Chargers have shown that they are not afraid to mix and match up front on the offensive line. Obviously, we saw Sam Mustipher start against the Chiefs. So maybe they're trying to figure out, again, who is kind of their, reliable depth pieces. But it is notable, obviously, that Foster Sorrell is potentially now the swing guy ahead of Jamari.
Yeah, and never would have guessed ahead of the season that you have McFadden, you have Sawyer, and you have Sorrell, Trey starting, obviously, that McFadden would be the fourth in that pecking order and not even really a consideration here.
Yeah.
But I understand, like, Sorrell playing right guard makes some bit of sense given what they did in the preseason. Before, he just tackle. But Baltimore used him at guard before. And then, of course, he's played guard in the preseason for the Chargers. And you felt he looked good. I thought he looked good. Statistically, he was good. So I'm fine with that. I don't know if he's going to be better than Jamari, but Jamari has not played very well. It's actually been a bit of a surprise, to be completely honest, because I thought that he would really fit everything they'd want to do, but he's just not right now. And I don't know if that's just because, hey, you're a left tackle, hey, you're a right guard, and they're kind of just moving him around. He's not a set starter working with these guys and working with the ones, but it hasn't looked great. So I'm okay with them going with the change here.
Yeah, and it's a shame that we've seen Jamari go from what we kind of expected of him heading in, coming out of the draft. I really liked him and his potential at guard. I had him as a top 5 guard in that draft class. He played well, I think, slightly overhyped from Chargers fans, but well at left tackle. And I thought he played at a good level last year at right guard. This year, it just is. It hasn't been great. So hopefully, this is just kind of a reset. But it's like the things that he does well in terms of anchoring and moving people in the run game, that hasn't been particularly great this year either. So him struggling with some communication stuff with Bradley Bozeman from time to time is not all that surprising. It's been happening with everyone, unfortunately. But what he does well, he is not, or what he has done well in the past, he is not doing well right now. So I don't know if there's something going on there or what, but I wanted to bring that up. So I appreciate Charger 4521 for bringing it up as well.
What happened to the number 3? Why is it 4521? Is there
3
missing?
Are we anti-3, or is that like a phone number?
Yeah, 4521.
Last 4 digits of a phone number.
Speaking of which, Justin Herbert is no longer anti-elevators. He doesn't put the no elevators hashtag anymore. And it makes me sad.
I'm so disappointed. Disappointed.
We've lost our vibe. Our aura is off, as the children say.
Yeah. You pointed it out on Twitter, though. It's funny to look at pictures sometimes to see how tall he is in person. And the way that he towers over even somebody like Morgan Fox, who's like 6'3", is kind of crazy.
Yeah, when we were on the field, on the practice field, like the guys walk by, and some guys are definitely taller or even shorter than you expect. When Herbert walked by, no helmet, no pads, you're just like, oh, Jesus, this is a tall human being. And I'm not very tall as is, right? But like everyone on that field is taller than me except Darius Davis. But like Herbert looked like he was like 7 feet out there.
Yeah, it definitely stands out. When I was at practice this year, before Justin Herbert got injured, I was right next to the offensive line, defensive line drills, and Herbert came back and was talking to Joe Alt. And Donald Parham was still on the team at the time, and they were like, the three of them were like congregated next to each other, and I'm like, man, like you three could probably form like a pretty
like 20 feet of person.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys could form like a pretty good NFL basketball team right here. So it's the Joe Alt in particular, I think he's still growing. Also, his dad said recently, so he might end up being like 6'10" when it's all said and done, which is insane. But yeah, very tall human beings. And Justin is built like he's got really broad shoulders, like his arms are, he's got really long arms. Like, yeah, it stands out for sure when you're up close in person.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you get cleats as well into the mix, and that adds some height as well. Okay. Any other thoughts from the injury report? I don't think there's really. We'll see what happens today. I know people look at the injury report every week and it's like really, really long. If a guy is limited all week, I kind of just expect them to play with this regime. Like, I think they're very much trending towards the conservative side of an injury report. So even somebody like DJ Chark, who hasn't practiced in full, I do think there's a pretty good chance that he does play on Monday night.
Yeah, I don't expect a full workload, but I think he'll work out there. Now that they've done away with the probable tag, it's kind of like people are maybe more like, oh, questionable, limited, but I think it's fine. I think they'll be fine. I think we at this point know who's playing and not playing.
Yeah.
And sorry, we didn't mention Joey Bosa. People are asking about Joey Bosa. It's frustrating that he hasn't been on short-term IR. Or that, I mean, people are asking for Tremon Morris Brash, and I get it. Like, they probably should elevate another guy.
Yeah.
But they keep going with it. I don't know if they just, because he has to go, if he goes on short-term IR, it's a minimum of 4 weeks. I wonder if they're just like, okay, we'll just get to the bye, and after the bye, he should be good. Oh, shoot, he's not good. Well, we can't really put him on short-term IR because he'll be good next week. Oh, just kidding. Like, we're really close. I think they're just trying to, like, not get him to that minimum of 4 games short-term IR, which is, I guess, good news. But yeah, it's week 7.
If he misses Monday, this would be the 3rd game that he misses. So if he is able to play next week, then that's the 4th game, right? And so, if he misses 3 weeks, that's ultimately fine. You can't put him on IR now, because if you put him on IR now, then he misses week 7, 8, 9, 10. And then that's the whole entire season. So it's too late for him to do that. I agree with like the common consensus that I want Tremon Morris Brash to be elevated. I would like to see him get an opportunity as a potential DPR and play some special teams as well. They need some extra juice in the pass rush department right now. I think like in the 4th quarter, we saw the main 4 guys from a pass rush standpoint get a little gassed, and I think having a 4th edge rusher who could actually play 10 to 15 snaps would be super, super helpful. Justin Eboigbe is like making the transition to the edge rusher. Like, he, from what I can tell in pictures and like pregame warmups and everything like that, he has not been playing with an interior defensive line group since Joey got injured. And so if that's the decision, fine, but like let him play, because you need somebody who can play some snaps, even if it's just him playing some run defense downs. Great. Like, you need more of a rotation out there. Rotating 3 edge rushers it's very, very difficult. So whoever they choose, whether it's Eboigbe or Morris Brash, let him play 10, 15 snaps, because you need that extra rotation. So I don't know how this Eboigbe transition is going to ultimately factor in when Joey comes back. But if he's going to be active on game day, let him play. That's been a little frustrating to see them make him switch positions, and he's not even going to get a chance to play in these games.
Yeah, that's definitely an odd one. Obviously, they're not playing in Denver this week, so that'll help some of the being gassed part. But you got to go chase Kyler Murray.
Right.
So another week of having to run around, chase a guy who's going to run quite a bit. Yeah, you got to get somebody else out there, even just for long-term sake. I think the Chargers will score. I think they'll win. But we're talking about, okay, you're on Monday. You now have to play the Saints, which, we'll see. But you still got to play them on a short-ish week. And the Saints will have a longer week to prepare for you. Got to also think of, the next week, the fourth quarter, stuff like that.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Joey. It's too late to put him on IR. He's should be close-ish to returning. He's not going to play on Monday, but I think there's a decent chance that he plays against the Saints. And if you're the Chargers, like, you just kind of got to deal with it right now, unfortunately. Okay, we'll get into some questions now. Always important to touch on the injury reports. We'll get final game status in a couple of hours here, and so we'll have you guys covered on Twitter and stuff like that as those come down. So we'll take some questions. We already do have 4 super chats. Super chats are always appreciated. They make sure that you guys get your questions answered, and then we'll jump around on the chat as well. So first one from Cody Spencer: Bills cut MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Should the Chargers target him?
So obviously they've had interest in him before. Not that I'm really opposed, but if DJ Chark is coming back, I think that kind of just negates, and I think that did negate the addition of him in the offseason to begin with. So I think if DJ Chark is coming back, you're okay. If there's a longer issue, then yeah, I would be in favor of looking into that.
I think this is kind of similar to the Mike Williams conversation in terms of getting another vertical threat in the offense. So I'm certainly not opposed. The Chargers did ultimately choose DJ Chark, but MVS also had other interests from other teams. I don't think Chark had any other teams going after him. I think obviously MVS had the Chargers and the Bills. I want to say the Ravens were interested in him as well. We'll see what happens here. MVS could obviously just go back to Kansas City, where has a long history, and
that makes sense.
The
Bills giving the Chiefs another thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Chargers should at least consider it. The difference between him and Mike Williams is that Mike is a true X and MVS is not that. MVS is more of a Z and a slot type. So I'm not opposed to it, but I think obviously if they want to go get a receiver, I would probably prefer like a better option. But I'm certainly not opposed to potentially charging him because he just adds that vertical threat that the Chargers are kind of missing.
Yep.
Speaking of DJ Chark, NSN, DJ Chark is rapidly becoming more of a mystery to me. Is it too optimistic to think he solves our wide receiver issues if he's back? Also, biggest concern. I think he means specifically about this upcoming matchup for that second question.
Does he solve the wide receiver issues? No, but I do think he is an important element. I think it's tricky. If this were heading into week 1 and he weren't hurt, and this is based off how he did in the offseason, how he looked with Herbert and these guys, maybe I'd say yes. But now with coming off the injury, I'm not so sure. But once he is back in full, I don't think he solves it, but I think he makes it much better. I think they brought him in specifically to be a part of Greg Roman's offense that they didn't have. And then they didn't have it for the first 5 games of the season. They haven't really found that guy. McConkey's been great in the slot, but he's not Chark. It's a different role. So I think he helps this offense quite a bit. And then biggest concern for this game, well, I guess now it's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. In terms of solving the issues, no, but he definitely helps them take a positive step forward because, like Tyler said, he's providing a resource that the Chargers do not have. So I think the Chargers solving their wide receiver position is probably happening next year when they can have more resources, where instead of signing DJ Chark to, a $2 million deal, you can sign a different receiver to like a $10 million deal maybe. And then you draft like another second or third or fourth round wide receiver. And then you keep building with Quentin and Ladd and the rest of these guys. So that the long-term aspect of this, it should not be understated because they obviously had to move on from Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. That creates a lot of challenges. But the Chargers, I think, have handled it pretty well from what we've seen. took 3 shots at the draft with it. You sign a guy like DJ Chark. You've developed Quentin at a really high level so far. But DJ Chark definitely brings something missing to this piece. I mentioned this on Thursday. Chargers have not completed a pass of 40 yards yet. They're the only team in the NFL to not do that. And DJ Chark is going to be the guy. He's going to be the one to threaten vertically that we haven't seen yet. So I'm excited to see what it looks like. I wasn't the most optimistic fan of DJ Chark heading into the season, but I thought in training camp, we saw somebody who was kind of rejuvenated a bit, getting passes from Justin Herbert, getting vertical as opposed to doing whatever he was doing in Carolina. So I think there's a good chance that we see DJ Chark kind of hit the ground running whenever he is back.
Yeah, I do think so. And hopefully he can avoid more injuries.
Yeah, 100%. Sholoman wants to know if the Chargers are getting their 6th interception in a row. I think there's a decent chance of that happening. I will say Kyler Murray has one of the lowest turnover-worthy pass percentages in the league, right next to Brock Purdy and Aaron Rodgers. So he does take care of the football. He's thrown 2 interceptions, but he's only thrown 3 turnover-worthy passes yet to this point. So there's a good chance. Obviously, there's, the tip passes are always a thing with Kyler Murray because of his height. Maybe Deion Henley can make a play like we talked about on Thursday. So there's always a chance. I think this is probably more of like a fumble game than an interception game if the Chargers get some turnovers. Yeah,
great call there. I think he has 4 fumbles, at least on scrambles or rushing attempts.
Yeah.
That will they get their 6th? First of all, I didn't even realize it would have been 6th in a row if they had won this game. I think we get a tip pass and T.I. Tart is going to intercept it.
We're just swapping back and forth between the Puna interception and then Elijah Molden and then Bud Dupree. And then Christian Fulton.
Yeah. There was so Durbin batted a pass way up in the air and Khalil Mack almost had it.
Yeah.
Against the Broncos. But yeah, I think that's all we'll get it.
I wonder what the record is for most interceptions in a row is. I wonder if that's
a question.
We'll look it up.
Probably more than 6.
Probably more than 6. Yeah. Next one here from Nicholas Petrilli, I'm guessing. Apologies there, Nicholas, but he wants to know, are you more worried about Harrison having a monster game through the air, considering our DB room, or Kyler Murray having a monster game with his legs?
Yeah, I'm worried about the Marvin Harrison Jr. monster game because he is that guy. I mean, there was one time we were live streaming during a Sunday Night Football game, and he had like 4 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns by the end of the first half. Like that is concerning to me. Not that I think that, I think they'll limit the big plays, but I do think he can have a big monster game. Obviously, we love Jesse Minter in this defense, but the DBs get a pass this week if they struggle against Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of fans bringing up the Cam Hart game. Very, very different at this point in time, I would say. Monster game, I can't really see a monster game happening just because I trust Jesse Minter that much to have that plan. But I do think there's a world where Marvin can get, 8 catches for 105 yards kind of deal, which is a big game, but like monster game, like you mentioned, is that one where he's got 150 yards before halftime. Like I think that's probably not on the table, but we'll see. I think for me, it's still Kyler Murray with his legs as a slight edge here, because Kyler Murray has always done that, and we haven't really seen the Chargers successfully defend against this kind of scrambler just quite yet. So that to me is more of like a back-breaking type of game where you just get a big chaos Kyler Murray performance is I think what scares me more. Jacob Arnall, what up, guys? Expectations for the Chargers offense versus a bad Cardinals defense. Fair to expect similar results to how we performed against the Panthers defense.
I mean, at least the Panthers had like J.C. Horn. The Cardinals,
Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, well, Joel took care of that one. No problem. Yeah, I would expect generally about the same results. I think they won 26-3 was the final score of that game. I think
Yeah.
you and I are thinking 27-ish points for the Chargers. I could definitely see a more of a sense of urgency and like to score and score as much as they can. In that Panthers game, they just second half rolled around. They just kind of they didn't have to. Bryce Young was pretty bad. Kyler Murray can very dangerously suddenly score a couple of touchdowns. So I think this will be the best shot they have at cracking 30 for a while.
I don't know, man. The Saints defense pretty bad right now also. But yes, I do think that it's safe to expect a very good performance from the offense. I think with the way that Lad McConkey has been playing on film, the way that they're kind of trying to grow his role a bit after the bye, the way that Justin Herbert looked on Sunday, the way that J.K. Dobbins has looked, Rashawn and Joe Alt are healthy. I think it definitely is safe to expect a performance at least hovering around 30 points. I think this is a game where the Chargers should be able to do basically whatever they want on offense, and hopefully this doesn't get into like a shootout kind of performance.
Mm-hmm.
But this is definitely a game where the Chargers would love to have, I'm sure, another 10-minute drive to keep Kyler Murray off the field. Hopefully this time it ends in a touchdown. But yeah, I think the offense is in a really good position to play very well this week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
NSN back, he wants to know how much would Mike Dubb cost? Not $20 million as I thought. Certainly not. He has a $5 million base salary for the Jets. So the Chargers would probably end up paying around $2 million of that, just depending on how like bonuses and things work out. If the Jets cut him, I think you're talking about like a vet minimum contract. Like this is certainly not $20 million, not even the $10 million that he signed with the Jets. So he would be very, very cheap, very affordable to go out and get through trade or through signing if the Jets end up cutting him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like, oh, Mike Williams, big contract. You know, who wants to trade for that? But like he costs $2.7 million this year, $5.8 million next year. The void years, I don't know, like how that gets calculated in for dead money, but I don't think that's on the Chargers to pick that up. So no, definitely not $20 million though.
No, my understanding of how the trades work is that you're not on the hook for the void year. So the Jets would still be on the hook for the void year. Void years happen because you're able to kind of front load some money. And so from a cap perspective, you pay a player the $5.7 million now up front in cash. And then you're on the hook for that deal for that number in the second year against the cap. So the Chargers would not have to take on the $5.7 million. They're only taking on the 2.7 that Tyler mentioned for this season because he was signed to the 1 year deal. So very, very affordable piece to potentially go get.
Yeah.
Miss Andrea Schoon with another super chat in here. She says that she's ready for another win. Yeah, chance for the Chargers to potentially go on a bit of a streak here if they're able to win on Monday night. Sounds like a lot of Chargers fans are going to be there. I know the last time the Chargers played in Arizona, there was a lot of Chargers fans at that game.
Yeah.
So should be a fun opportunity. I know actually a couple people here from Fresno that are flying out for that game on Monday night. So I think this is a really good spot for the Chargers. I'm expecting a fun, entertaining game on Monday night. It's a shame it's on ESPN Plus, but it is what it is. It's a good uniform game. Also, the Cardinals are going to be wearing their all black uniforms. I assume the Chargers will be wearing their all white uniforms. So should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely ready for another win. Their schedule, we've talked about it, very favorable. Different, right? We feel very different than maybe we did before the season. Cleveland is just a mess. New Orleans is a mess. The Cardinals, yeah, present a threat on offense for sure. But then it's Tennessee in week 10. And then you get to the Bengals, and I have no idea what they're going to be by week 11. So yeah, the Chargers could win their next 4. Like, I'm going to pick them to win their next 4. And then we'll see what happens when we get to Bengals week.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple questions in here about potential trade targets other than Mike Williams. Ivan wants to know who our top targets are. Caleb asking specifically about DK Metcalf. Have you thought at all about other potential trade targets besides Mike Williams?
Not in particular. I mean, Osa from the Cowboys would be a great target. it's more of just like a wish list than an actual
Yeah.
realistic target, maybe.
Yeah.
But any pass rushing interior defensive lineman would be fantastic. The Chargers need that.
Yeah. Osa Odigizua is potentially a guy there. You know, I have been kind of trying to poke around to see if the Chargers are being active, and I haven't been able to find anything concrete just quite yet. But these teams who are going to continue to lose and lose, like they're eventually going to become more sellers around the league. Like the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they lose again in London this week to the Patriots, they're going to be sellers. The Saints, if they lose to the Chargers next week, they're going to be sellers. The Browns apparently are already selling off pieces. So it just kind of depends. Like I know everybody wants like a big name on a winning team that's not getting like a ton of touches. Everybody keeps asking me about Mark Andrews. Everybody keeps asking me about some of these other guys. Even DK Metcalf, I think, is just teams are not trading that. There was people talking about Jalen Waddle yesterday on Twitter. Like, no, these teams generally try to hold on to their best players unless they're in like a truly dire situation. But you can always go out and find expiring contracts or a young player who is maybe not in the picture full time. You know, maybe the future contracts are an issue. So Osa Odigizua is a really good player. The Cowboys are kind of sucking, and they don't really have the money to pay him because of all the other contracts that they have. So Osa is a good call. I think Greg Newsome still is a good call. There's been a few publications who have written about him as a potential option. So Greg Newsome, who we talked about before the season, I think for me would probably be my number one target, just because it knocks out a short-term issue for the Chargers. He would be the starter opposite of Christian Fulton. And then long-term wise, he could be your CB1, and that knocks out a draft need as well. You could have a secondary going forward of Christian Fulton, and you bring him back as well, Greg Newsome, and suddenly your secondary you feel a lot better about. So I would say Greg Newsome is still my number one target from a trade standpoint.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's funny, all these potential sellers or likely sellers, Cardinals, Saints, Browns, they all play the Chargers coming up. So maybe they just got to get past that game against the team before you trade away that player. But yeah, those teams, especially the Browns, I could definitely see. And then I hit it. I don't think he's not a pass rusher, and it's not this year, but we're getting closer to the third year of Mozzie Smith in the NFL. Has been a disappointment for a first round pick.
Yeah,
but would be curious if they'd be interested in a reunion given the connections.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think, you know, getting him in this kind of situation where he would play as a backup as opposed to like the Cowboys drafted him to be like the savior of their defensive line. And sometimes the pressure of being in that role for the Cowboys specifically is an issue. So I wouldn't be opposed there. Tight end wise, I've talked about a few options. I reached out to a friend of ours who covers the Giants. They mentioned that Daniel Bellinger is like not in their long-term plans after being kind of their tight end one a few years ago. They obviously drafted Theo Johnson this year, I think in the third round. So Daniel Bellinger, I think, would definitely be somebody that would interest me on the trade market as well.
Yeah. I went to school with a guy who played. Anyway, yeah, sure. Could poke around.
Yeah. Looks like we got a few more super chats back in.
Yeah,
here.
wow.
Appreciate this from everybody, of course. Gary in here next. Could now be the time to gradually incorporate Brendan Rice into the offense as an X receiver? Otherwise, why keep him on the roster?
Why keep him on the roster? It's a great question. We might find out very quickly whether they do or not, given DJ Chark's coming back. So we'll see. But I don't think he really fits in the current plans right now. Unless Palmer's struggles continue, but he's kind of on a bit of an upswing right now.
Yeah.
And they have their starting trio that they want. I mean, and then what? Simi Fehoko caught his pass. Like, I think people don't understand that Simi Fehoko is kind of like the perfect last guy to make the roster, the perfect other guy in the receiving room. Blocks his ass off, can give you a chunk play, veteran, special teams. I just don't see where Brendan Rice is going to fit ahead of that because Simi Fehoko basically has everything taken care of. What is Brendan? I don't mean this to like Brendan Rice can't do these things, but I don't know what Brendan Rice is going to do right now that Simi Fehoko can't. So I think they're just kind of stuck. They don't have a way to get Brendan Rice active on game day, barring injuries.
Yeah, the fan base loves Brendan Rice, and I get it.
Totally.
Probably a large chunk of the fan base are USC fans. Obviously, his last name is Rice. I'm sure that's doing some heavy lifting as well. And at practice in training camp, he looks good. But if you zoom out from training camp, Simi Fehoko outperformed him at every single turn possible. And you can talk about quarterback issues. It was definitely a thing. But Simi Fehoko was one of the best receivers in the league in preseason. Like he led the
NFL in receiving yards with Easton Stick.
Yeah, he was super productive. He looks great on special teams. He made a tackle on special teams against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Or wait, was that the Chiefs game? I think it was the Chiefs game.
I think it was the Chiefs, but I know what you're talking about.
Like it was an awesome punt. Like the J.K. Scott kind of laid out a bit of a duck punt, and Simi Fehoko had an awesome tackle, like right as McCall Hardman, catch that ball. So he's been a fantastic blocker. When he's been given targets, he's been productive. He's the exact end of roster receiver that you want, like Tyler mentioned. He's outperformed Brendan Rice at every single turn. I understand why we like Brendan Rice. I wish we would kind of wrap our arms around Simi Fehoko a little bit more because he's earned the right to be ahead of Brendan. And now that DJ Chark is potentially coming back, he might not be on the roster. So I understand why the fan base wants to see him, but he's wide receiver 7 on a team that doesn't really throw the football a ton. So it's going to be a while. He's a developmental project, I think is how we need to kind of look at him, as opposed to somebody who could come in and save the offense. Because if that were the case, he would be out there. Like this Chargers regime has no allegiances to Simi Fehoko. They did not draft him. They did not sign him. He's earned the right to be out there, and Brendan is behind him right now.
And I think there's, again, this is a rookie contract. There are several years to go. There's nothing wrong with Brendan Rice not getting it together this year, not having tons of targets this year. It's okay. We can be patient there. As they've shown, they'll go with the veteran who can play better right now, contribute more right now. That's why all these other veteran guys have been out there. Same thing here with Brendan Rice.
Yeah. That doesn't mean I'm out on him by any means, but
sure.
He was a 7th round draft pick, and him being a little bit slower to develop is very normal.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what happens there. If another injury happens, obviously he would be the next guy up. So I'm sure at some point we will get to see him play, but I think we need to lower expectations here a bit for Brendan Rice. Gary Rockwell says that the cheap AZ viewing option is NFL Plus app. I think you can do the NFL Plus app and stream it that way. I think you can do the VPN and get NFL Pro or whatever it is as well. So there are some other options if you don't want to pay for the ESPN Plus.
Yeah, I think a lot of us will be watching this game, and I think most of us will not be using ESPN Plus to watch it, but we'll make it work. We'll all be reacting in a minute or so delay.
Yeah. Athier back in here. He says that he has a question. Will the Chargers make Murray a pocket quarterback? And his prediction is Chargers win 31-21.
I don't think they have the guys to really make Murray a pocket quarterback. I don't think they have really the secondary to hold. And I don't really know if they even have the rush to just like contain for that long. So I don't know. Like Puna Ford's going to run his ass off. Like they're going to try to keep him in the pocket and all that. But I don't know. As far as the prediction, I could totally see that. I think that might be his most reasonable prediction I've seen from him.
Yeah, 31-21 I think is very, very reasonable, very possible outcome. I think they'll have a better plan for Kyler than they did for Bo Nix, just because Bo Nix was the first time you've played that guy. But Kyler just naturally, like he wants to escape as much as possible. And so there will be a few times where they break contain for sure. Jesse says that locally should be on ABC or Fox. The same happened when Bills versus Chargers were on Peacock last year. It was locally on NBC.
Oh,
that would be awesome if that's true.
Yeah, that'd be great. Obviously, I just watched on Peacock last year. Got to say that you did it. You watched a game on Peacock.
Yeah.
A good old Easton Stick starting barn burner, which again is insane that he almost carried the Chargers to a win against the Bills in prime time, and yet was the worst quarterback in the preseason I've ever seen.
Yeah, that game was actually kind of fun looking back on the season. Khalil and Tuli were fantastic in that game, as they have been. They kept Josh Allen under wraps. Obviously, Alohi had the interception. It was that was the first game, right, of the Giff Smith experience. So you know, they were very injured that week. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah. The ESPN Plus experience. So Utah has had 2 games on ESPN Plus, and it has been awful. Like the sound quality is not great.
Oh wow.
The delay is not very good. Like I follow obviously all the Utah beat reporters, and I would get like tweet notifications like a full like 45 seconds before the play would happen, like on the ESPN Plus thing. So if I'm able to find a different way that is not that, and maybe it's different for the NFL, that would be awesome. But ESPN Plus needs a lot of work, basically, is what I'm saying.
Brutal.
So if you have Twitter notifications on, I would turn them off for the game on Monday night.
Yeah.
And then turn them back on afterwards.
Yeah. Looking for questions now?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? You guys can go ahead and fire away. Easton Stick is still on the roster, but he is officially QB3. He's been the emergency quarterback, so he's like inactive but active. I wonder if there's a point where they potentially get to some of these guys coming back or other guys being injured that they would consider cutting Easton Stick and putting him on the practice squad, since he's been officially surpassed.
Yeah, because Eric Tomlinson was like, oh yeah, that'll be the guy they cut. And then he was the game captain, and Hayden Hurst is hurt.
Yeah.
So now if Hurst goes to IR, that kind of helps, I suppose. But then you might just elevate a tight end. So I don't know, because that was the easy cut for us on paper. Now that's not really seeming to be the option. So maybe it is Easton Stick that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Vanessa wants to know if Justin Herbert is capable of an MVP season under this offense and Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh.
I don't think so. Based on what we've seen so far, I actually don't think so. Only because I think there will always be 3-ish other AFC quarterbacks who maybe even have the same record, but they could win their divisions and have another 500 to 750 yards, more touchdowns. I think Herbert will have the most success of his career and win the most. And I think they can get to that division win eventually. And I think that's more important than the MVP. But as far as an MVP season, I just don't think so, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think obviously this offense led to an MVP season out of Lamar Jackson, but that year Lamar Jackson had 1,000 rushing yards.
Yeah.
So it's a little difficult. I think also part of the MVP, like it's the statistics. It's also the other guy in Kansas City. Like the Chargers, in order for Justin Herbert to win MVP, the Chargers have to beat the Chiefs in the division, and probably by like a couple of games. And because Justin is not going to have the statistics to match up with typical MVP numbers. I think he'll have the efficiency, but in order for them to be MVP, the team has got to go like a 15-2 record. You're the 1 seed. You're the best team in the league. That's the possible outcome for Justin Herbert to get MVP, but I don't think MVP statistically is really that possible because, he put up MVP caliber numbers in 2021. That was 5,000 yards passing and 38 touchdowns. Like that kind of season is probably not happening again for Justin Herbert. I don't think he really cares because he just wants to win. And as Brendan points out, he can definitely win a Super Bowl MVP if the Chargers get to that point. But regular season MVP it's so tough. There's so many good, AFC quarterbacks. You have to win the division. You usually have to be a 1 or 2 seed in either conference. So it's just a tough individual spot for him to get to. I don't think he really cares. I think he just wants to win.
No. Yeah. At this point, he doesn't care at all. Got the rookie of the year. Everyone knows he's a good quarterback. Time to become a winning quarterback, which has not been his fault.
Yeah.
But it's time to get those wins there. And for what it's worth, generally speaking, now I know there's been injuries, but adjusted EPA per play is like the very like obvious indicator of who the MVP candidates will be by the end of the year. Herbert's 24th right now in adjusted EPA per play. Generally, like the top 1 or 2 guys are the guys that win MVP. We'll see, because that's right now it's Jaden Daniels, then Josh Allen, then Joe Burrow, then Joe Flacco, then Lamar Jackson. So we'll see how things
Joe
shake
Flacco.
up. Yeah, man. Yeah, again, crushing it. So we'll see.
Yeah. Like I said, if the Chargers get to a point where they're the best team in the league, he definitely has a chance. Things would have to go right for him in other regards. Other quarterbacks would have to kind of take a step back, et cetera, et cetera. It's possible, but statistically, he's going to have his work cut out for him just because they're not going to throw the football that much ever under this regime.
Yeah, and as they get better offensive line, better whatever they need, better defense even somehow. They also, like Herbert doesn't need to throw it 50 times a game. And that's the point. That's the point of Harbaugh and obviously Jesse Minter. The defense is great. He doesn't even need to put up MVP numbers, big numbers. So yeah, it has nothing to do with like how well Justin Herbert's performing, just not the raw. He just won't have the raw stats. And then of course, they got to beat the Chiefs in the division, which might happen when my kids graduate high school. I have no kids, by the way. That tells you where we're at.
Mahomes is 28, so
we got a ways, man.
We got a ways. Eventually, Andy Reid's going to retire, and Travis Kelce's going to retire. We'll see what like the next iteration of the Chiefs look like, but Mahomes is that guy. I mean, Josh Allen's not going anywhere. Joe Burrow's not going anywhere. Now the NFC has Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. Finally, NFC is kind of balancing the scales a bit here. You have these amazing offensive Joe Flacco's not going anywhere. But you look at some of the offensive coaches that are putting up huge numbers right now. Like you look at what Matt LaFleur is doing in Green Bay. He has an MVP level talent in Jordan Love, Ben Johnson, and Jared Goff. Like you never know what happens there. Ben Johnson could obviously leave and go somewhere else with his own MVP level quarterback. There's just it's going to be tough from a statistical standpoint, but if they win enough games, there's always a chance.
I'm excited to see where Ben Johnson goes.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested. The job's got to be right, obviously, or he's not going to leave. Athier at this point with another super chat. He says, Steven, my bro, I love your knowledge. A couple of shows ago, you said possibility of Michigan tight end Colston Loveland to the Bolts first. He has gone in top 15, and we go be playoffs team. And no chance, I hope. So translating here a bit, he thinks that Colston Loveland is going to be gone in the top 15, and the Chargers aren't going to be there at that point because they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what Loveland's prospects are like. I don't know what this quarterback class and every other position group. I have no idea. But even Brock Bowers fell to 13. So if Loveland is maybe a lesser tight end prospect, and again, I have no idea. I could see him moving down a bit. I mean, Kincaid went 20.
He was 23rd.
23rd?
Or he was the first 24th, excuse me.
Yeah, after the Chargers. 22nd was Zay Flowers. And then Addison.
Was Addison. Yep.
Yeah. We all remember why we know that. So yeah, I could see him maybe going into the 20s. I don't think they'll move up for him. But yeah, I think he could get there.
Yeah, Colston Loveland has a few things working against him in going in the top 15. He's injured right now. And the Michigan quarterback room is one of the worst quarterback rooms in college football right now. Like they cannot throw him the football. So he is not a Brock Bowers level of prospect. I think he's very, very good. The tape last year was awesome. So much fun to watch. But he's not a Brock Bowers level prospect. He's not a Kyle Pitts level prospect. So that's kind of working against him. And then also there's been a lot of other tight ends who have kind of, taken a big leap forward this year and are potentially challenging him. The Penn State tight end, the Texas tight end. I don't know most of their names just quite yet. It sounds like a really, really good tight end class. Tyler Warren. Thank you, Dan Deitch, for that's the Penn State tight end. It sounds like a really good tight end class, which is great news for the Chargers. They could go get a defensive playmaker in the first round, second round, third round. You could probably go get your future tight end one and potentially get back into that swing. So I'm not going to be surprised if Colston Loveland is on the board when the Chargers pick, unless the Chargers obviously make an extended playoff push. I do think he is kind of in like that 20 range. And if they took him, I would not be all that surprised. But there's so many good Michigan prospects this year. Like, I know the team overall kind of sucks, but Mason Graham, the other defensive tackle, Will Johnson, the safety who they have, like they've got a lot of good dudes that the Chargers could potentially pull from if they want to get back to, building up the Michigan pipeline.
Yeah, and I would imagine they do. They had Colson, Johnson, and then Barnhart as the undrafted free agent. That was their 3 this year.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see another 2 or 3 this year.
And they have Christopher Hinton on the practice squad. So
that's right.
Yeah. So there's a few Michigan guys that I think could make sense. Kenneth Grant. Shout out Dan. He's on top of it. Kenneth Grant is the other defensive lineman. He's also fantastic. So
any good Notre Dame defensive guys this year? There's a corner.
Corner, I forget his name. Benjamin Morrison. Yeah.
Sure.
That's the one. But he also just got injured. So we know a little bit about the draft right now because there's been some guys who caught our attention last year. I watch more college football than Tyler does, but Alex Katzen is the draft guy here. Make sure you're watching Katzen's Corner every single week if you are interested in the draft right now.
Yeah. The fact that I don't know anyone's names really is one, typical, but two, it means the Chargers are not terrible. So yeah. That's good. I think we were doing mock draft.
We started draft prep very early last year. We started draft prep very
break, and I'm like, sweet, let's start watching. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's never good when me and Tyler are doing mock drafts in December like we were last year.
Yeah. Oh man.
Or the first year we did the podcast was 2020, and at least that year we had Justin Herbert to talk about every single week. But yeah, we were doing mock drafts once a week during that season also.
Not fun.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a couple more questions here. So go ahead and fire away if you want a food question, pop culture question, whatever. Yeah, this is your time to do so.
Yeah. 11 super chats though. That's a lot for a Saturday. Thank you guys.
Appreciate that.
I'm trying to keep track now. 11, that's our current record. I'll say that. And then let's see if we can beat it next week.
Yeah.
There we go. Here says Chargers go edge round 1. Based on the landscape of their roster, I'm not opposed. It's tricky because we feel so great about Thule, but haven't really seen it yet this year. But we saw it last year, so we know what he can do, and he's great against the run. But I'm not opposed. But they have a lot of stuff to take care of.
They do. I think this is part of the reason why I would love to see them go get a Greg Newsome or a Marshawn Lattimore for what it's worth, because that would just give them some flexibility in the draft. It does sound like it's a great cornerback draft. It doesn't sound like it's a great edge rusher draft, but there's a few guys like Abdul Carter or Michael Williams from Georgia who are just kind of physical freaks that have not been super productive in college, but athletic traits wise would be great to draft, slap behind Thule and Khalil Mack for a year, and then you kind of see where you're at. So the edge rusher, I think, is definitely a possibility. I think my preference right now is just for them to draft whatever defensive player they want in the first round. Yeah. Everybody's going to clamor for a wide receiver again, and I get it. And there's going to be some love for tight ends. There's going to be some love for Ashton Ginty. The defense right now has so few long-term assets. They have 2 linebackers who are going to be here for a long time. Hopefully Thule's here for the long time. That's it that we know of so far. So I would love to see them get a defensive tackle, an edge rusher, a corner, and start beefing up the defense with some resources, because you look at the offense, right? They have Herbert, they have the 2 tackles, they have Ladd. Hopefully Quentin becomes a guy. it's a bit different from a long-term draft perspective. So I would love to see them go defense in the first round. It is October 19th. We'll see how that changes. You never know based off of like injuries and things like that. But for me right now, it's like defensive line, like pass rush. That's what I think is probably where I would go right now.
Yeah. If they don't bring Khalil Mack back, that is probably your preference though.
Yeah.
As edge.
If Khalil is not back and Joey's
obviously
also not back, then you have to go edge rusher in the first round. Bud Dupree does have a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
So he's
it's $3 million
back.
Yeah.
But if your edge rusher room is Thule, Bud Dupree, and a rookie, that's not great. That's not an ideal situation. Khalil, for me, like, he's playing so well. I know the sack numbers haven't been what they were last year, but he's controlling the line of scrimmage at such a high rate. I want him back almost no matter what. And I think from a leadership standpoint as well, it just makes too much sense. So if your edge rusher room next year is Khalil, Thule, Bud as your third guy, and then your rookie as your fourth guy, that's a great start. I think you're starting to rebuild that room. I would love to see that. So that's kind of where I'm at. Buffalo Boys drafting a top cornerback, also very much a possibility, especially if they don't bring back Christian Fulton. I think that is probably where you have to go also.
Yeah, I agree there. I wonder how close we'll get to talking about Derwin as a cut candidate.
Let me look up his contract real quick.
I don't know what it is. I guess I could look it up, use my brain, but that's difficult.
The Chargers don't need to. Like, he does have a cap hit next year of $23 million. They would only save $9 million by cutting him and take on a dead cap hit of $14 million. But I would say the chances of him finishing this current contract at this point are probably pretty slim. I think he was not great in slot this last week. I think generally, though, he's been pretty good. I don't think he's been the 2021 version of Derwin James. Obviously not the rookie version of Derwin James, but he's not been an issue. He's playing well. He's executing his role well. It's just like the high-end safety play we were hoping for has not really come to fruition just quite yet under Jesse Minter. But he is playing a lot more free safety this year. He's playing a lot more coverage this year. So we'll see how kind of this role evolves. But I think even Jesse Minter would probably say that they're not using him to his fullest potential quite yet, just because they're trying to have so much protection in the background.
Yeah. And maybe, he turns it on and goes crazy next year when they have a first round corner. And I don't know. Or a better pass rush. I don't know. But right now it's $24 million cap hit next year. So as you mentioned, it's not a next year thing. I don't think. But
no, I don't think so. I don't think so either. In 2026, they could save $18 million and have a $6 million dead cap hit. So that's the year that you're probably cutting him.
Yeah.
But I think he's on the roster next year. So that's another position. Alohi Gilman will be a free agent after 2025. Elijah Molden's a free agent after this season. I would love to see Elijah brought back for what it's worth at this point. So we'll see. Buffalo Bills, are we all assuming this is Bosa's last season? Yeah.
Yeah. It really should have been last year. But now that you high risk, you took the risk, you took the swing. It has not worked out. You let him go. Unfortunate, but you can't go into next year hoping, okay, this will be we just did this and we've done this regime. I get why they'd be interested in seeing if they could be the ones to make it work. But even if he has I don't know, it's tough, right? If he comes back and he looks like the Raiders game every week, I don't know. I guess ask me in, 3 months.
Yeah. So unlike Derwin James, the cut next year makes way too much sense financially.
Yeah.
If worst case scenario happens for Khalil Mack, and that's the reason why you're potentially keeping Joey Bosa, I'm okay with it. But the whole thing about Joey has been the injuries, and he's already dealt with a broken hand. He's already dealt with a back injury, now a hip injury. At this point,
Yeah.
I'm a bigger Joey Bosa defender than like probably anybody on the internet. um, but I think at this point, it just makes too much sense. Like you have $77 million projected in cap space next year. You cut Joey Bosa, that's an additional $23 million. You can head into next offseason with Joe Ortiz having $100 million in cap space. It makes too much sense, man. Like I don't really see a reason why you do that. And you can take that $23 million and just say, Khalil Mack, here's your money. And I think from a roster standpoint, from a cap standpoint, from an on the field standpoint, there's no real reason to keep Joey past this season. Unfortunately.
No, I mean, and that money, you talk about, okay, should it be Fulton or should it be Ford or should it be Molden or should it be Dobbins that comes back? $23 million gets you your entire wish list. Like your entire team can come back of those guys you brought back or that you signed this year.
Yeah. And they could try and do the whole thing they tried with Mike Williams this year where you cut in and then go test the market. If nobody else wants to sign you to a bigger deal than you want, we'll take you back, not at your, $20+ million cap hit, but maybe they can give him a, $10 million contract with a lot of, bonuses and conditions and things like that. And you see what you can do. But the Chargers, I just don't think they have really any reason to keep him, unfortunately.
I will not be advocating for Hassan Reddick this offseason. I'll tell you that. This will be the first offseason I do not say anything about Hassan Reddick.
No. But yeah, man, I think they entered this offseason with like $27 million in cap space. So they can get just like almost to that point by cutting Joey Bosa alone. So, and you get $77 other million plus whatever money they carry over from this offseason, plus an increase in the cap from the NFL's TV deals. There's a chance the Chargers have the most cap space in the league next year and can just spend.
Yeah, okay. So if the league needs more money, so we need to like watch more. So we all need to subscribe to ESPN Plus and watch that game. Get the Chargers more cap space next year for their TV deal.
We all need to do our part.
Yeah,
no Stream East. Go pay the ESPN Plus subscription. Exactly. Go pay for Netflix for later on. Yeah. Pay for the Peacock subscription. All that stuff.
Yep. Exactly. Got to do it.
That's what I'm going to tell Brooke when she complains about us paying for YouTube TV from now on. We're just doing our part. We're trying to get the Chargers more
cap space. Yeah. Yeah. Do you like J.K. Dobbins? Well, if we don't subscribe to Peacock, he's not coming back.
Yeah. And you guys, I'll donate to the NFL on part of you by sending more super chats. So I'll do that. So I'm really doing my part here.
There you go. Wow, Theater's on fire today.
All right, last one here with the Theater. Is it possible Chargers pack the house in Super Bowl SF?
I'd like to see them pack the house at SoFi first to see if we can even pull that off. I don't know. I feel like a third of that stadium will just be 49ers fans, regardless of whether they're playing or not.
Yeah, the Super Bowl has become such a it's like 10 grand to sit in the lower bowl, like at minimum. So it's really just become like influencers will go and so it is what it is. The Super Bowl is going to be in LA in 2027 for what it's worth. But
I don't know.
Jacob, ESN Plus after Stevens ran and called it. Yeah, it sucks, but we're doing our part, okay?
We're doing the big brain thing over here now, okay? Like this is important. Yeah, Super Bowl way too expensive.
Yeah. So. Brooks' cousins are super big 49ers fans, and they went to the 2019 Super Bowl in Miami, and they sat on like 5th row below the note, like the highest row possible. They were 5 of those rows below that, and they spent like $6 grand a ticket. And like, listen, the Chargers have never been to a Super Bowl in my lifetime.
You're 2, I think.
I was a month old when the Super Bowl run happened. So if they ever make it to the Super Bowl again, like I am strongly going to consider but it also depends like where it's at. If it's in San Francisco or LA, super easy for me. I just drive 2.5 hours up and down.
Mhm.
But if they make it to a Super Bowl in like Indianapolis and I have to take like 4 different flights to get there, I don't think I'm going to do that one.
No. I don't know. Maybe it also depends on who they play. Like the
Yeah.
Chargers are very much so a favorite, and just like the other team happened to get there out of circumstance.
Yeah.
Like if
It would
I
be
were a Patriots fan in 07 and the Giants were coming to the Super Bowl, I would have gone to that Super Bowl because like, oh, the Giants like the wild card team, whatever, and we're undefeated. What could possibly go wrong?
it would be way more likely for me to go to like an AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
Also, depending where it's at. I'm not going to an AFC Championship game in Buffalo in January.
You and I just shirtless with our like paint on. It's like, yeah, bolt up on you. Like, that'd be great.
But if the Chargers host an AFC Championship game, 100% I'm there. 100%.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. If they're in if they have a game at SoFi, I will be there.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anna son. I do like the cold.
I sat through
Buffalo
plenty of snow games in Utah and not a fan. Not a fan.
When was the last time we hosted a playoff game? 2006, 7. Whenever they lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship.
Was the Bengals playoff game in 2013? Was that a home
game? That
was
in Cincinnati.
It was in Cincinnati. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute. It has been a minute.
Yeah, I want to say the AFC Championship game, but it's been a while.
I mean, the Chiefs have won the division for 10 years in a row.
It's Chiefs or Broncos forever. So
lost
to the Jets. Oh, the Caden game. Yeah, awesome. Great. Let's air out all our trauma today.
2009
with the Jets. Oh yeah. I was stoked for that game. Like it's like what like when you first watch a movie and you realize like as a kid and you finally realize that movies could be really bad. It's kind of like that game was kind of like, oh, like this sucks. I don't know. That game just like broke me as a kid. I remember that one. As a kid, I was like 13, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 2009, I was a sophomore in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But that year, like all of my friends, they all kind of like became Chargers fans, like for me, because they were like so good that year. They were so much fun to watch. And obviously they had LT and Phillip Rivers, and like they were the young team, and everybody kind of hated the Patriots at that point. Everybody was so depressed that Monday at school, and obviously me too, because it was the kicker who was very good up until that point. The reason that they lost. So yeah, that 2009 year was rough.
Well, at least they moved off of that kicker and never had a kicking issue for the next 15 years after that.
Yeah, Mark freaking Sanchez. Yeah.
Yep.
Randall, Jesus, y'all are young. Yeah, we're not the youngest podcast out there, but we are definitely not the oldest either.
We are definitely not the oldest.
All right. Great turnout today. We appreciate you guys for jumping in here. 15 super chats we ended up at. So
15.
Keep that one in mind, Tyler.
Okay.
All right. Bit of a different schedule next week because the game is Monday night. So we're not going to be here tomorrow, obviously, but we are going to be live Monday night. We kind of forgot that the game was kicking off at 6 instead of like 5. So it'll be a late podcast for you East Coasters. Hopefully you'll stay up and watch it with us. And then we'll do our film review episode on Wednesday next week because we are not able to watch film that quickly. So we'll watch film on Tuesday, do our film review on Wednesday, game preview on Thursday. So a bit of a different schedule next week, but should be a lot of fun. Monday night games are always super fun, even if it's on ESPN Plus. Will be a good time. All right, guys, appreciate you so much for tuning in. Make sure like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff does help continue to run the show. We'll see you on Monday. This has been the Guilty as Charged podcast. As always, bolt up.